I think we're very lucky to be involved in this watch world right now, to be customers of watches that are being produced right now, because right now there are some super high quality micro brands coming out, just like this Heron, that are still achievably priced. Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I am talking about watches. And if you've been involved in the watch world for a little while, or been collecting watches for a little while, there's a reasonable chance that you would have seen a trend that I've started to see. And that is the quality of micro brands really getting better. There was quite a few individual brands coming through that are great, but it seems to be that the overall quality of these micro brands is getting better and better. Yet the designs are still very cool, very interesting, very different. The specifications you get are also amazing, and the prices are still relatively affordable. And one brand that ticks all these boxes and creates a great looking watch is Heron. And I've been so thankful to be able to get hands-on and on-wrist experience with this one, because Heron, the brand, reached out to me and they've lent me this watch. This is not a sponsored video. I've just been lent this watch and told, have a look and tell me what you think. And I think that this is a very nice watch. And it's an interesting watch to get hands-on experience with, because I think some of the things that I thought about it when I looked at the pictures have been dispelled. And I mean that in a good way. And if you want to look at those pictures, you can see them on their website. And I'm going to leave a link to their website in the description of this video. And you'll see there's a few different variations of this one. Today, I'm going to be looking obviously at the one that was lent to me, and that is the Marinor Ghost. If you buy one of these are 890 Australian dollars. They come featuring a Miyota Highbeat 9039 movement, 300 meters of water resistance, a boxed sapphire crystal, and something that really stands out to me that I'm hoping happens to more and more watches, but this one has hardened steel. That is something that really makes a difference when you're owning a watch, because I've owned so many watches, and having a hardened steel case and bracelet, wow, that makes such a difference. So thanks, Heron. I'm glad you introduced this feature into your watches. And the reason why this watch is on wrist so early in this review is because this is the thing that surprised me the most. For some reason, in my head, looking at these pictures of this watch, I thought perhaps it would be a little bit top heavy or a little bit chunky. Perhaps maybe it is because it is a relatively simple, clean dial, but I don't know why I had that thought, because when I actually put this watch on wrist, it is such a comfortable and nice dimensioned watch. The case itself is 39 millimeters, but the bezel overhangs a little bit, making it 40 millimeters. It's only 12.8 millimeters thick. It has a nice compact 46.5 millimeter lug to lug, a lug width of 20 down to 16, which does make a big difference, and it sits at 134 grams whilst sized to my 17 centimeter wrist. And I am really appreciating watches that are coming out in these dimensions, both the case, the thickness, and the lug to lug, because it makes it sit down nice on wrist, both being a shorter lug to lug, a nice sort of standard 40 millimeters, but that thinness achieved because of that 9000 series Highbeat Miyota movement. But as much as I like the size of this watch, as much as I like the on-wrist feeling of this watch, it's really the dial that's grabbed my attention. I love the simplicity of the dial and the hands, with a couple of interesting features being that hour hand arrow and that 12 o'clock logo. But I like that it is relatively simply applied and simple hands, because it then gives room for that dial to shine. The color of the dial, the sparkle of the dial, how it fades out to the edge of the dial, it just allows room for you to enjoy that. And this is one, when you put it out in the sun, that you really do appreciate it, and then you get sucked into that dial. I get sucked into the details of the dial and the color and just the experience of it. But because of that dial color and those silver hands, I thought perhaps that maybe the silver would disappear occasionally, but I've not had that problem at all. And I think it is because of the placement of the lume. It breaks up the metal, it creates a reflection, it creates a contrast, and then against that dial, the more simple style dial, it makes this a super legible watch. Those printed on hour markers are large and bold, and it's very then simple to see the hands pointing at it, and they stand out a lot when you turn the lights out. Now this is covered by a piece of boxed sapphire crystal, and when you look beyond that, you're going to see a rather simple sterile bezel. This is because this is the ghost version of this watch. There are other versions that don't have a sterile bezel, so if you want to check out their website to see the other variations, you can. But this one does have a sterile bezel, which then creates a really interesting effect with that dial, and I think that looks quite cool. However, not probably the best to use to then time anything, but that's the choice you would make if you choose this particular version. And it does still then action because it is a 120 click unidirectional bezel. Now that hardened steel case is predominantly brushed, and the brushing is very good, especially when you look close. And when you do look close, you'll see that that brushing is broken up by a very small chamfer which is polished, which is nice because it breaks up that brushing. And as you turn the case around, you'll see that the crown is both screwed down, giving you that 300 meters of water resistance. It is signed, and of course it is also guarded. The case back is relatively simple, but it gives you some information about it, saying that it is a hardened steel sapphire crystal with that 300 meters of water resistance. And just as that dial captures the light because of that sparkle that is embedded within it, so does the bracelet. The bracelet, as it curves around your wrist in a way that feels silky smooth, also grabs the light. And it's a really nice feeling and look. It really grabs the attention. It makes it feel very nice on wrist, and it makes it also feel like a very quality watch. These are solid links, solid end links, leading down to an on-the-fly adjustable milled clasp, and that nice heron logo that's on the clasp. I really like that logo. I think it's probably one of my favorites that I've seen so far. As I look down at this watch, as I'm wearing it, I get an interesting feeling. I get a feeling of a dressy style diver. And I quite like dressy style watches, beyond just dress watches. I like dressy garter watches, I like dressy field watches, and I like this dressy style diver. It's an interesting design. I like features of it, and as a watch that it's going to be a little bit sad to have to send back. So thanks Heron for lending me this one. Well, I guess I'm going to have to send it back to you shortly now that I've finished this video. And now that you've finished this video, maybe you'd like to watch a couple of my other videos.